Hey everyone, this is Rob Adams of the Actors Workshop, and welcome back to a new episode of In the Abyss. So last week I am in class and I'm watching a scene, and for those who don't know, I'm in my 29th year of coaching acting. So next year will be 30 years, which is pretty monumental of doing one thing for this many years. But I regress. We'll talk about that as we get closer next year. Anyways, so I'm in my 29th year, and I'm sitting here and I'm watching some scenes, and it kind of dawns on me, here's something that I have noticed before, but it really stood out. And I think one of the cool things about my job is that it continues to evolve. Different ways of thinking, or different ways of coaching or teaching, or trying to get through to my students, or whatever it may be. There's always new ways and new approaches that kind of hit me or dawn on me as I'm doing what I do. And so it's never repetitive. The scenes may be, situations may be, but the learning never is. And I think that is a really important part of what we do, that even if you are an actor, an acting student, an acting coach, you're always evolving and finding new ways to perfect your craft. And we've talked about this before. There's no way to perfect the craft, right? The challenge is to try to perfect it, even though you kind of know there's no way of doing it. But that's the never-ending challenge, is trying to reach perfection. That's what keeps the fire burning. So that's one of the things, like I said, that I love about my job. And I'm watching these scenes, and like I said, it kind of just dawned on me. When I watch scenes sometimes, I always kind of feel, no matter what the conversation is, I kind of feel like my students are on equal ground. And the reality of it is, in real life, nobody in any situation is on equal ground or in equal conversation ground, and let me explain. Parents are on a higher ground than their kids. A boss is on a higher ground than their employees. A teacher and students, a coach and their athletes. We can go on and on and on and on. But even in more equal situations, like a good marriage, there's always somebody who's going to have a little bit more of an edge than the other person. That doesn't, once again, make them better. It just means that maybe this person's a stronger personality, or maybe the other person picks and chooses their battles, or whatever it may be. So even if it's 50.1 to 49.9, it's never on equal ground. But when we watch acting scenes, a lot of times we kind of feel like it's on equal ground. And the reason for this is because the mentality going into our work is not invested. Because if you're invested and you're dealing with the situation, right, you should know you're talking to your boss. You should know you're talking to your husband. You should know you're talking to your wife. You should know you're talking to your kids. You should know these kinds of things, which kind of dictates a little bit of those edges and the highs and lows, etc. And the more you start to realize that and get invested, you start to deal. And what I've noticed in the last week, since we were really talking about this and discussing it with my students, is you start to see more energy and more convictions and more deliberate in what we're trying to get across. And even if you feel like the other person has the edge, there is that confidence that is coming in a respectful way, depending on, like, if you're talking to a boss, you got to be respectful in doing it. Or if you're talking to a parent, same kind of thing. You're seeing it in a respectful way, but in a way I want to get my point across. And once again, we see this in normal life. If we have a boss, we speak to them in a certain way to get across what we need to get across without crossing that line, right? Or once again, as a parent, the way my kids talk to me, they have convictions and passions and all these things, but they do it in a way where they are not crossing that line, right? Now, on the flip side, if you feel like you have that edge, that doesn't mean you're talking down to people. It doesn't mean that you're demeaning them. It could, but it doesn't necessarily mean it has to. What it means is that you understand, I'm in charge. I'm the boss. I'm the parent. I'm the coach. And then that drives energy and conviction in how you speak to people. Now, once again, going back to past videos, I'm not telling anyone how to do this. What I'm telling you is what you would already know. We talked about the what's compared to the hows back a couple weeks ago, right? You would know if this was your boss. You would know if you were the boss. You would know if you're the coach. You would know if you're the athlete. You would know if you're the parent. You would know if you were the kid, right? So a good example of this is up until my dad passed away 5.5 years ago. We worked together for 24 years, and I would probably say in the last 10, 15 years of that, I was really the boss. But when we had conversations, he was still dad. So even though I could speak to him in a way of running a business together, there was still that line that I knew I was speaking to my dad. And I showed that respect, and I showed, him that I understood that. But on the flip side, he was really good at understanding that as the boss, I was setting the schedules, and I was, doing this and doing that. And so when I would throw those things out there, he would hear it and listen to it and take that stuff in and then give his 2 cents. So there was always that give and take. And it's funny because when you work with a parent, even if I'm the boss, dad is always still the boss. It's just the way it was. But we did it in a way where it worked, and there was a respect, and there was passion and conviction and energy. But we both understood who and what we were, and who and what we were in the situation we were put in. How that played out were the conversations. How that played out were the situations. And there were arguments at times, and there were banters back and forth. But overall, what makes it work and what made it work was that understanding. So, once again, this is playing into the what's of what we're doing and understanding it. How it plays out is how we're talking to other people, how they talk to us, and how we deal with each other in these situations. And once again, like I said, the last week, my students' approach, understanding this a little bit more, has been much stronger. And I can't be more thrilled with the last 9 months of work as a whole with my students, the understanding and the drive and the determination and the way that they've tried to better themselves. And we really are pushing and striving for a word called consistency. And they're all trying to do these things. So when we come up with these new ways of explaining things, or we come up with these new ways of doing things, they're really, jumping on the bandwagon and trying to apply it. And the result is getting really fun to watch, because you're seeing more moments, you're seeing more things that, oh my gosh, I would never thought of that. Oh, it triggered me to think this, or it triggered me to think that. And it makes the elements of what we do so much more fun, because it opens up to the possibility of what could be, not just the obvious. And that is the result. So, this is something I'm going to keep pushing, and I'm going to keep hammering to them until they get consistent doing this. And it's just the newest thing until something hits me to, approach it from a different angle, or to teach on top of, building off of what we're talking about here, that edge. So anyways, I thought that I would share that in a video this week. I think it's really important. I think it's a great way to think about it. And, hopefully that helps you guys that are in the class, of course, or those ones that are thinking about getting into the class or getting into acting. Hopefully that gives you a little bit more idea of how to think about film compared to, thinking about other avenues of acting. Anyways, if you have any questions, once again, you can email me at theactorsworkshop.com. You can also leave a comment in the comment section. If you have not subscribed, please do that, and we'll see you again with a new episode soon.